just want to start out by saying thank you all for coming out. You are doing your kids a wonderful service by participating in this Science Olympiad tournament. It's a lot of fun. This is my 20th year of doing Science Olympiad. I absolutely loved it with my kids. They loved it too. And my daughter is now a doctor in the Air Force, and my son does cybersecurity for the Marine Corps at Quantico. So they both were pretty successful, and I do credit this program with giving them a lot of the skill sets that they've used throughout their lives. So kudos to all of you. You know, you're doing a really nice thing for your kids. We'll start with the handout. You got the rules for 2015. Make sure that it says 2015 on it. I've listed the 23 items that I kind of cover in the tests. So when you're teaching your kids, you can kind of figure out how many weeks you have until your competitions, and you're not going to have enough time to hit all 23 before your district probably, but kind of hit on the ones that you think might be more important to start with, and then you're going to have additional time before the county that you can hit on the other things and refine. As we go down there, that number 3, clouds. This is the cloud chart that I will be using. You can get it online, you can download it, print it out at home and take it, get it laminated or whatever. It's a nice reference. It's a good thing for reference. You want to pass it around? Take a look at it while I'm talking. The weather forces and winds, global wind patterns and weather forces are really probably the only things that we're going to do globally. Everything else is pretty much contained to the United States. I do current weather events and historical weather events. So the current weather events would probably be something within the last, starting from like last June until competition time. Sometimes I wait right till the last minute before I do my essay questions, so it might be something really current. Be very much aware of what's been going on in the weather world. Some has already occurred, some may be coming up. You know, if there's a significant snowstorm that affects people somewhere. That's the kind of stuff that I think the kids should be watching for. Yeah.
You talked about covering global patterns, right? But you specified about U.S.-based or the Americas. When it comes to current weather, would you be mostly in the Americas continents?
Current U.S., yeah.
Current U.S. weather.
Yeah. The global wind patterns, I mean, you have to look at it globally because they do affect the global. And La Nina and the jet stream, Coriolis, that's all pretty global too. Other than that, it's all going to be United States.
Yeah.
Let's see, the scientists. Oh, let me go to 18 here, radars and satellites. When you're looking at that, you're looking for stuff on the internet. It's also under remote sensing. So, I do want them to know about the Doppler radar and the GOES and the POST satellites. I do think that that's important. Along with the weather instruments, they do not have to like build one or anything, but you know, they should know what an anemometer is. They should know what a barometer does. You know, they should know how these things work and why they're important. Forecasting and prediction. They don't have to know. I mean, just basic knowledge. I think it's kind of cool that they would know if a storm was, like, you know, we're boaters, and if you're stuck out on the lake and a storm comes up, you know, it'd be kind of cool to be able to know certain cloud is coming in and it's looking more dangerous, and, you know, or if the weather's going to be nice, you can tell that by what kind of clouds there are and stuff like that. The weather scientists, you don't have to get crazy with these guys, but they're all pretty famous for what they are responsible for coming up with, their mathematics, or their, you know, what they're famous for. That's basically what you need to know. I would suggest using flashcards for most of the stuff too. It helps a lot. There's even some, I saw some online the other day that you can just print off and cut them up yourself. So you don't even have to make your own anymore, so it's pretty easy. Okay, any other questions about the actual topics? Okay, we'll move on.
Sorry, I had a question. I'm sorry, I apologize, I came late, but on that, the PDF, the cloud chart PDF, so they need to know all the different numbers as well as the types of clouds, or just the types of clouds?
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into those cloud symbols. That's too hard.
Okay.
Because there's
so
other symbols on the surface weather maps that I use, where it says weather maps, graphs, and charts. I really like the surface weather maps. I like, they should be able to read like the snow depth map. You know, there's all kinds of maps. I'll get into that when I get into the website, so okay. But no, no.
But they don't need to know like 1, 2, 3. They just need to know. Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
What a cumulonimbus looks like, or some cumulus cloud or stratus cloud or something, you know. Okay, WW 2010, that is for you guys. It's a college module that University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana put together. It's obviously in 2010, but they have updated it, and you can sit down, and it's not a difficult module to get through. You can probably do 1 or 2 modules a day. I probably did 2 or 3. You know, if you have whatever you have time to do, you can probably get through the whole thing in less than a week. It's a really good basic learning tool for learning about weather, and it doesn't really get into like the storms and stuff like that. It's more about the air masses. It's the basic, the basic stuff.
I'm going to Cranbrook to understand the written, to read how the winds went. And I'm like, how does that happen? And then I saw it was like the mini circles. Cranbrook's got it like in a display. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good, I was just talking to another coach earlier. Cranbrook is a good resource to take your kids to. And, okay, anyway, my go-to check everything website is the NOAA website. That is where I go to if I see something on another website that looks kind of interesting, but I hadn't seen it before. I say, well, let's see what NOAA has to say about it. So if you have questions on stuff that you see on other websites, always check it with NOAA. They're my Bible. The problem with that website is it's so enormous. You can get lost in it for a month, you know. So I would go to where it says weather, because they have a lot of different sections. They've got marine, they've got climate change, they've got all kinds of things. Stick with the meteorology section of it, and you'll be okay. They also have breakdowns for teachers and students. You know, obviously you look at the teacher sections, and they'll give you resources you can use, and then you can use kids sections for your students. The RAP-U card is where I get most of my maps that I might use in the test. But I really think those surface weather maps are just awesome. When I discovered those, I had a blast with it. I used to print out like a big storm coming in, and I print out 4 or 5 of them and tape them together, and I have them all over my dining room. You know, my family would freak out. But I love taking pictures of big storms, you know, especially on those types of maps. Now the NOAA site for Special Topic Science Olympiad, that is not our event, but they've partnered with the high school national level, and there's some really good information, good learning information on that you can use for your kids. Okay, for books, now, for Jeff,
yeah.
You might know more about good weather books than I do, but for me, as a layperson, he's a meteorologist, in case some of you didn't know. He's going to be the Oakland County Weather Event Supervisor. But this is an old book, and not all of it, like the back I got a little bit too crazy, but the first section of it is basic weather principles, and it's a little complicated. I had to sit down with my notebook and outline the pages while I was reading it, but doing that, I learned more from this than I did from any other. It was just, it made sense to me. It's not going to make sense to everybody. Everybody learns differently, but this was like the book I learned on. National Audubon, I don't think they're not really great for teaching you, but they're really good for reference. Like if you want to look something up quickly and find it, you know, their pictures are spectacular, it's well organized, and it's just a nice little book. And then these, we didn't have the capability that you guys have now, printing pictures off the internet and stuff. But I would get these for my kids, first of all, because they're cheap and easy to give. You could give one to each of your students and they would probably look at it. Secondly, I used to use these pictures for my tests. I would actually tear the pictures out and use them, you know, when I was writing my own tests for home. Because the pictures are kind of universal. They're really good. So I know that's kind of blasphemous to rip up books, and it broke my heart the first time I did it, but then once I did it, I was like, this is the coolest way to do a test ever, you know? Because it was fast and easy, and you could make up the questions right there. So, all right. Structure of the weather night events is 20 rotating stations with they have 2 true and false and 2 multiple choice. There's 18 stations with the multiple choice true and false, not 19, because there's 2 essay question stations, and I'm going to cover that in a minute. Time allocated is 1 minute at each station. We do tell them when the 30-second is up, so that they know they should be where they should be on their test. All teams will be provided with 1 Scantron. I will pass these out before they come in. And 1 essay question. They get that when they're in the room. I'll go over this too. Please, please, please teach your students, put the name of their school. And that's one of the things with these Scantrons. It just says name and subject. I wish I could change them all to say school name and team number, but I would highly recommend that you print out labels for your kids, for the whole team. So they each go in with a page of labels or half a page of labels, and they can just take them off and just put the school name on there and the team number. They take the label off and stick it on there, and then it's done. Every year I get kids that don't put anything up there. And we try really hard to figure out what team it is, but sometimes we can't, and then you just get disqualified, you know? So labels are really the way to go. Talk to your head coach about supplying it for your whole team. Yeah.
Do they carry the same Scantron to each?
Yeah. But when it gets a little different is when they're going to get to their essay questions. And the room is set up in a circle, starting with station A, B, C, D, E, F, G, goes all the way around. And then when they get to these essay questions, they'll be handed this sheet. Once again, they need to write their school name and their team number. And then they'll answer their essay question at station S. And they'll take this over to station T, answer it there, and then there's a box here that they'll be placing it in, okay? That's the way that we work it. Now understand that at County, I have 20 teams in the room at 20 stations. So kids will be starting on station T, or they could be starting on station F. And what we tell them at the beginning of the test is if they're on station F and it's question 24, make a little mark on question 24, and that's where you start. You're not going to start at A because you're not on A. You're not at 1. All right? Upside down, sorry. This is what it looks like. It says this is station A, question 1. And I have these at every station. So it says this is station B, question 5. All right? That's how it's going to look to them when they get there. And we remind them constantly throughout the event to check what number you're on. But it is written there. And then my test is on the back of this, and when we say go, they flip it over, and they'll have the 4 questions on this page. All right, and then they flip it back when they're done. But that's how the test works. At no time do I ever mix up the order of the letters. They are not going to go from A to F. They will always go from A to B, B to C. But they could be starting at C. You know, some kids will be starting on the essay question test. Some kids will be starting at T. You know, because I got 20 stations and 20 teams. Yeah. Practice that with them, because that's a problem. if they get mixed up on the first question, the whole Scantron's going to be wrong. All right? And I do everything I can to help them. Yeah.
So is there a limit to how many students you can have on your team of one, or is there 2 students that you have?
At county, there's a limit of 2.
Okay.
But at district, you can bring in your alternates, we call them. You know, you might have like, you might have 4 kids, and we do let them in at district.
So can we divide them up where one of them goes to the essay and then one starts?
No, they have to work together.
So the whole time they're together? Okay.
Yeah. That gets kind of funny too, when you get the alternatives in there, and they're not really doing anything, and they're sitting down, looking at the
And put them off separate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think some districts will run 2 teams. You know, you could have like a team of 3rd graders and a team of 5th graders in the same event, if you had that many kids. But still, those teams would stay together all the way around, okay? But yeah, some schools do start their kids earlier, you know, like putting them right in the competition. But probably they would put the 5th graders in the county competition, not the district. But it's good for the 3rd graders to learn. And then we got a 3rd grader right here that rocked it last year, so. Anyway, that's a good question. Okay, let's see. The essay questions are used for tie breaking only, all right? And I really do need that because I do have ties, but my test is hard. It's a hard test, and it's hard, so I don't have a million ties. And spelling does count, which makes it difficult because I have had kids that have had the right answers, and they spelled every word wrong, and I couldn't give them the point for the essay. And that where they kind of broke my heart, because they're hard questions. But so when you're working with the essays, I'm looking for keywords and spelling, and they only need to put in 1 or 2 sentences. That's all it is, you know. But the more keywords they would have in it, of course, the more points they would get. So if I'm asking about how does a thunderstorm form, if they had convection and warm air rising and cooling off, and there's things like that, a description of that. But make it as brief, because again, remember, they still only have a minute for that question, so they don't want to be sitting there too long. When you're putting your teams together and assigning the roles, which you need to do, you should always have like a writer and a reader. And then try to make your writer your better speller if you can. And that would make it easier. And they can talk to each other, but just try to give them roles so that they're not all trying to do the same thing at the same time. One job is to read the question, the other one is start writing, because the reader can start telling the writer what to write right there, Or they can both read it, but then sometimes the writer gets distracted with the reading and doesn't write fast enough. So these are all little tips here of putting the teams together. Okay, well, I covered my tips pretty much. Keep them whispering. Sometimes they get loud. Sometimes their neighbor starts talking loud, and the kids listen to them, and because they think they know what they're talking about, and they really don't know what they're talking about. So remind them that, not everybody that thinks they're right is right, and keep their eyes on their own paper. I really don't have trouble with these kids at that level. They're so cute. They really are. All questions after today will be posted on the Macomb Elementary Science Olympiad site. I do answer them on that site. Okay, so come up with any questions. I hope I'm covering everything here. I do like weird weather, weird words, weird weather words, descriptions. For example, derecho. So I thought that was, a few years ago, that was on one of my tests when that derecho went through Pennsylvania. That was a huge, pretty significant weather event. And one kid got it right. I was so happy. So my tests are not posted on the internet. I work way too hard on them, but I do stay in the room for 20 minutes after the test so that you're able to see them, but I don't let you take pictures of them either. But it's good for me because that keeps me honest, because then you guys see that I'm writing the test as to what I'm telling you what's gonna be on it. So, and then there's one 5x8 index card per team. That's not per team member, so it's just one per team. Another little thing with Science Olympiad, if it doesn't say that you can't do it, you usually can. Okay, so take that with however you want to, but keep that in mind when you're looking at the rules of all the events. It helps. So, all right, number 2, pencils, please. I do have extra pencils though, so don't panic if the kids forget them. I help them as much as I can. Well, one thing I was having a little trouble with, the kids were coming in with pencil pack carriers last year. Like, I don't know, what do you call them? Pencil cases. And that's not allowed. It's just nothing except a pencil and their 5x8 card. I was having to take a lot of that stuff last year. So. Okay, any questions?
You said we were going one 5x9 card?
5x8.
5x8?
Yeah. It's half a sheet of paper.
You put anything on it you want?
Whatever you want. Okay?
What's the best place to get the most amount of lightning information? I found a lot of general stuff being it's not like me searching for things. It's kind of, I guess, one of the easier things to describe, but then we went in last year, there was lots on it, and I'm like, there's gotta be somewhere better to find more information in detail.
No, it has a whole brochure.
Okay.
Whole brochure, yeah.
When you talk about weather instruments and how they work, do you also need to know the scientists who created them and when? No.
No, you only need the scientists that I have on.
The 4 scientists.
Yeah. I told the last week, one year, when my kids were still in elementary, they gave us this event that had 100 scientists of all different subjects that we had to learn and memorize, and I was just like, are you kidding me? So, all I want you to do is give credit where credit is due. You know what these guys are most famous for. You don't have to know where they were born or anything like that. You know, just how did they contribute to meteorology? You know, that's the basic. You know, I think it's important that we know who these guys are. So, anybody else? No? We're good?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.